Now let's discuss pledge and mortgage. I will discuss pledge and mortgage together because of the similarities of these two contracts, okay? The similarities with respect to their requirements for the valid perfection of a contract of pledge and a contract of mortgage. But before I will discuss the provisions that are common to them, I would like to compare first what a pledge from a mortgage is for better understanding. Okay, so kung sa Bisaya pa ni guys, parehas ni silang prinda. Namrinda ka. Pero unsa man gyud kalahian nila, unsa man gyud distinction nilang duha. Ang pledge, by definition, okay, this is a contract whereby the debtor delivers to the creditor a movable or a personal property or an instrument evidencing incorporeal rights. Like kaning mga certificates of stock certificates evidencing ownership of shares of stock of a corporation, pwede na siya ma-pledge. Okay? Now, the purpose of a pledge is to secure the fulfillment of a principal obligation. How about a mortgage? A mortgage, guys, when we talk about mortgage, we are referring to a real estate mortgage, ha? Kaya naaman sad goy chattel mortgage. But the chattel mortgage, we will discuss that later after we discuss real estate mortgage. But ang mortgage itself, kung mortgage gani atong gamiton, we are referring to REM or real estate mortgage. Kaya ang kanang chattel mortgage, that should really be specifically denominated as chattel mortgage. Okay, so a real estate mortgage, guys, is a contract whereby the debtor secures to the creditor the fulfillment of a principal obligation using immovable properties. So again, prinda. Pero unsa man gyud kalahian? Sa pledge, ang imong giprinda personal properties, movable properties. Sa mortgage, ang imuhang giprinda yuta. Okay? Unsa pa may kalahian nilang duha? So, in a pledge, you are securing, the property is really delivered to the pledgee or to the creditor, meaning there's actual delivery, that the possession and the control of the thing used as a security of the obligation is delivered, given to the creditor pledgee. But in the mortgage, there is no delivery of the real property. And no delivery is required. However, what is necessary is the execution of the public instrument evidencing the real estate mortgage. So, kailangan nagpinirmahay mo og kontrata, because a real estate mortgage, guys, is a formal or a solemn contract. If you recall this, ato ning gidiscuss sa law on sales nga, di ba? Ang mortgage, formal or solemn. Mao ganitong katong with our discussion on conventional redemption, that the contract is only referred to as an equitable contract because of the absence of that formal document. Okay, so dire, real estate mortgage, the execution of the formal document, so we have like a constructed delivery of the object. Okay, what else? In pledge, the contract of pledge is binding against third persons if it is in a public instrument. Okay, so kung ang inyong kasabutan wala na notaryuhan, valid siya between the parties only. But if you want to bind third persons, the document must be duly notarized. Now, in a real estate mortgage, the contract or the contract itself will be valid against third persons if it is registered in the registry of deeds. Diba? Ganina inong ko, a mortgage is valid by the execution of a public instrument. So, kung nag-execute mo between the parties, valid na siya. But if you want to bind third persons, it has to be duly registered. So dapat na ay annotation on the title nga naprinda na siyang yutaa or kana nga property na prinda na siya. This is in accordance, guys, to our principle in land titles sa kanang mirror doctrine or mirror principle, that whatever you see on the title is valid and binding against third person. So kung wala nila nakita nga giprinda kay walay naka-annotate, walay naka-register, valid ang prinda but only between the mortgagor and the mortgagee. But if you want to let the third persons know nga giprinda gid ninyong property, then the real estate mortgage must be annotated on the title of the property. Okay, so I hope it's clear now what is a pledge and what is a mortgage. So what are the similarities between these two? So the validity of a pledge and a mortgage, the requirements for their validity are similar, common, okay, as provided for in Article 1285. So what are the requirements common to a pledge and mortgage? Number one, that they are constituted for the fulfillment of a principal obligation. Okay? This article, guys, emphasizes to us the nature of a pledge or mortgage. That it is only, or these contracts are only accessory contracts. Accessory meaning they cannot be entered into on their own. They cannot validly exist on their own. Kailangan naa sa tay principal contract nga gikasabutan before ta maka-create or maka-enter validly into a pledge or a mortgage, because they are only security undertakings or security contracts. And in almost all cases, the principal contract or the principal undertaking is a contract of loan. Okay, so for better understanding siguro, the layman's term that we use sa kaning mga security is collateral. Kana, diba? So, ang collateral, di man na mo valid ang collateral kung wa kay primary or principal obligation. And unsa man imong principal obligation? Utang. Nangutang ka. And para makagarantiya ka or para makasure ang imong creditor nga mabayaran nimo ang imong utang niya, naa kay collateral nga gihatag. And that is a pledge or a mortgage. Okay? So, as a security undertaking, guys, the pledge or the mortgage can secure whatever kind of obligation. It may be a pure obligation or a conditional obligation as provided for in Article 2091. Regardless of its pure or conditional, what is important is that the principal obligation is a valid obligation. Because of course, the validity of the principal obligation is a prerequisite for the validity of the pledge or mortgage in accordance to our principle that the accessory follows the principal. If the principal is void, automatically the pledge or mortgage is also void. But if the principal is valid, granting or provided that the pledge or mortgage is also valid, then they are both valid. But if the pledge or mortgage is void and the principal obligation is valid, then the principal obligation subsists and only the pledge or the mortgage is void. So what will happen to the contract? It is as if nga walay security or walay kanang collateral nga nahatag. Okay, now, another point that you have to take note, guys, in pledge or mortgage is that these are examples, these two contracts are really examples of secured credit transactions. Okay? Secured credit transactions in the sense that there is a tangible object or a tangible property given as a security for the obligation. Diba? Kaya sa pledge, naa ang movable property o sa mortgage naa ang immovable properties. Okay? Next requirement, that the pledgor or the mortgagor must be the absolute owner. I will discuss this together with the third requirement that the pledgor or the mortgagor must have free disposal of the property. Okay? Then I will also discuss already the last paragraph that the pledgor or the mortgagor may be a third person. So dili di ay kailangan nga ang debtor sad ang pledgor or ang mortgagor. It could be a third person. For example, nangutang ko. Yawa man ko'y property nga i-collateral, nihangyo ko sa ko ang friend. Friend, pwede manghuam ko si mong property akong gamiton prinda collateral sa ako ang utang. Kung musugot ang akong friend, then I am the principal debtor. My friend is the pledgor or the mortgagor. Okay, so that is allowed. Basta lang yun, si pledgor or mortgagor, he may be a third person or the debtor himself, the principal debtor himself, as long as he is the absolute owner and he has free disposal of the property. What is the reason for these two requirements that is provided for in Article 2087? Because the property may be alienated in payment of the obligations. Okay? Ingon ani manggod ni, di ba, nangutang ka. Collateral sa imuhang utang ang imuhang gi-pledge or ang imuhang gi-mortgage. Now, kung maimpas ang imong utang, why problema? Pero kung dili maimpas ang imuhang utang, that's when the issue comes in. Unsaon man pagbayad? O naamay security, naamay collateral, so atong gamito na siya. Pero please note that the property given as a collateral, as a security, will not be automatically transferred to the creditor. But what will happen is that the property will be foreclosed. Muna, if you notice, kaning mga pawn shop, guys, na sila mga subasta sale or na ay mga auction sale, like sa Pag-ibig. Pag-ibig or mga bangko, kanang mga gipang-embargo nila nga mga properties, ilan ang i-auction sale. Mauna na ang alienation. Kay, gamito nila ang property, ibaligya na nila. Kay ang halin, the proceeds of the foreclosure sale will be used in payment of the obligation. Okay? Dili kay kung dili maimpas ang creditor na ang makatag-iya. Please take note that in 2088 that is prohibited by law. Saming 2088 guys is pactum commissorium. Kana ganing automatic appropriation. That means nga kung di mo mabayaran ang imuhang utang, katong imong giprinda automatic ako na kung ako si creditor. That's not allowed in our laws. Dili na siya allowed. Although this is common, I know nga naay daghang nagbuhat ani kanang gitawag prinda palit, but legally guys, that is not allowed under our laws. Okay? So, ang mahitabo sa prinda palit, magsabot si creditor o si debtor nga. Di gani ko kabayad sa kong utang, katong giprinda na ko, imuha na siya. Okay? Or ikaw na tag-iya, dahil dili na pwede, automatic appropriation is not allowed. Why is pactum commissorium not allowed? To avoid instances of fraud. Okay? If you allow this will give the creditors the opportunity nga padak-an pagmaayo ang interest, nga ang tendency maglisod na og lukat si debtor kay naa siya hidden interest, na siya hidden agenda nga iyahon na ang panag-iya sa property niya. Naprinda niya at a very low price, kay niya ang value sa property dili mauso, murag na-alkansi si debtor niya, na deprive si debtor sa ownership, which again dili kay ganahan ang balaod nato ana. Kay nga atong balaod as much as possible dapat ma-preserve sa owner or sa iyang line ang ownership sa property. Okay, so daghang possibilities of fraud or deceit if you allow pactum commissorium. So dili na allowed. Okay, so now if you ask, ma'am, what if naagi nagsabot ingon ana? Well, the stipulation on pactum commissorium is automatically void. Dili gina siya musalir sa atong balaod. So if ever nga naagid na nga stipulation, cash out gid na. So we go through gyud foreclosure sale. Although the creditor can participate in the auction, pwede siya mo appeal, pwede siya mo bid. And if ever he is the highest bidder, then that's the time nga acquire niya ang ownership sa property. Dili pwede nga automatic sa iya ha. He should go through the process. Okay? So, going back guys sa katong absolute ownership and free disposal o alienation. Kay lagi, kung di maimpas ang utang, ang property ibaligya. Okay? Undergo of foreclosure sale. So, alienation is the sale. Now, since there is a sale, so we go by our rules on sale. Now, the seller must be the owner because there will be transfer of ownership to the highest bidder or to the buyer during the foreclosure sale. So, kailangan man of foreclosure sale, so kailangan the seller, the pledger, or the mortgagor must have the capacity to transfer ownership to the highest bidder or to the buyer of that property in an auction sale. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Ako nang gisaksak-sagon ang mga provisions or mga articles because they are really interrelated. Okay? Next, let's go to Article 2089, the indivisibility of the contract of pledge and mortgage. Sama ng indivisibility, okay? Indivisibility, guys, meaning that the entire principal obligation must first be fully paid or fully settled for the release of the pledge or mortgage. Kung gusto ka mabawi ang katong imong giprenda or ma-clear ang annotation kung yuta ang imong giprenda, that will only be done kung naka-fully paid ka or naka-fully settle ka sa imuhang giutang. Dili pwede nga partial payment raman ni so ako sa ning i-release na. How will you be able to do that? For example, imong giprinda imong cellphone, nagprinda kag cellphone. Imong utang 10,000 prinda kag cellphone. Nakabayad na kag 5,000. Pwede partial release sa akong cellphone sa man tungaon nimo. That will destroy the cellphone. Kung yuta, ang yuta, although pwede nimo ma-divide, but ang title anang yuta, di ba? Hassle kaayo. That is why kailangan sa yun i-fully pay or i-fully settle ang obligation before the release of the pledge or the mortgage. Okay? So if ever the pledge or the mortgage are being transmitted or transferred to the heirs of the debtor or the creditor, they can only ask for the debtor's heir who has paid a part of the debt cannot ask for the proportionate extinguishment of the pledge or mortgage because dili lagi pwede. So if namatay si debtor, all the debtors must come to an agreement to fully pay the obligation for the release of the pledge or the mortgage. Same manner if it is the creditor who died. Now, even if, guys, you secure the obligation with 2 or more objects. Okay, for example, nangutang kong 20,000, then I use 2 cell phones. Okay, kaya ang kani good for 15,000, this one good for 5,000. Even if nabayran na nimo ang 15,000, di ka pwede mo ingon niya, pwede i-release ni nga cellphone. Kaya anyway, humanam ko bayad sa 50. Because these 2 cell phones secured only 1 contract or only 1 obligation. So kailangan, imo yung i-fully pay, dili ka pwede mangayo og partial extinguishment or partial release. Unless imong gi-specify. For example, nangutang kag 20,000 yan ningon ka that this cell phone will secure the 15,000 and this cell phone will secure the 5,000. And if it is expressly stipulated in your contract that once the 15,000 is paid, you can ask for the release of this cell phone and then unya na ni kung nabayaran na sad ang 5,000. But if wala na siyang express stipulation, kaya yun ang nahitabo guys, divisible na siya by express agreement. If wala na siya, then we go by the general rule that the pledge or the mortgage is an indivisible obligation. Okay? Then we have Article 2092. A promise to constitute a pledge or mortgage will only give rise to a personal action. Meaning, it is not yet perfected unless there's really delivery of the movable object in a contract of pledge or the execution of the public instrument in a contract of mortgage. When you say personal right by the promise, that only means you can force or you can compel the other person imong pugson nga i-make good ang iyahang promise. Okay? Because the contract being a real contract or a formal or a solemn contract, real contract for pledge, formal solemn contract for mortgage, it really requires the delivery of the object for perfection or the execution of the public instrument for the validity of the contract of pledge. Okay, so the similarities or the provisions common to a contract of pledge and a contract of mortgage.